Hi, in this session we're going to look at what parents' life is like in today's world. Right. So we've already started talking a little bit about parents, and I suppose it's impossible to talk about parents and teachers and students without the other two creeping in into this talk, isn't it? Let's think a little bit more about parents today. So more and more parents are working today. More and more of them are living in nuclear families. They understandably are under considerable stress themselves because they have work and school at one hand and personal sort of family expectations on one hand. So I mean, three of us are parents here, and I imagine that life as a parent has changed in the last 15-20 years. Parenting itself, I think, has become a bit more challenging. I know there was a time not long ago when I was young, about 20-30 years ago, when people thought it's okay to hit children once in a while, and that was the norm. Not just okay, it was thought that you have to do it. If you don't do it, God alone knows what they'll do. They'll go and take lots of things, or they'll just keep asking for things. And so there were parents, and you see this in movies and cinema, and lots of depictions about this. That where one parent, sometimes the mother, would ask the father to go and discipline the child because it's been ages since he's done that. And if you don't discipline your child, what's going to happen to them? I think we moved on from that. I think we're living in an age today where at some level, everybody, including schools and parents, even children, have figured out that hitting is no longer acceptable. And that's a good thing. Because there's a lot of research that shows that when you are violent or aggressive with young children, there are two things that children learn from it. The first one is that violence is acceptable. It's okay to be violent once in a while. And the second lesson they learn is that when a bigger person wants something from a smaller person, then violence is an acceptable means to getting that. So I do feel that that's a really positive thing, that we're not hitting children today, not at home, not at schools, or I hope we're not. I know we're not supposed to, but I imagine it happens sometimes still. But I think what's not happened is appropriate and good quality parenting interventions, such as those based on principles like emotionally intelligent parenting or mindful parenting or positive discipline. I mean, these are just three of the most popular parenting theories that have each has sort of 20-30 books on it. And the essence of all these techniques is that parenting is about the parent-child relationship. It's about the parent-child bond. And whenever you are faced with a challenge, so a child wants to watch iPad and you want to take it away from him, aggression is not the best way to do it. And there are some steps that these theories talk about. And they go something like this. So the first step is to try and connect with the child and establish that you understand what they're really going through. So to real empathy. So you would say something like, look, I know exactly how you feel. I really want to watch this. Now you feel like if you don't watch this, God alone knows what will happen. Once you've done that, the idea is that you collaboratively solve that problem so that two things happen. One is that the child is able to learn that, look, if I have a problem, I need to sit down and resolve it. And that's the means to solving problems. The means to solving problems is not taking things or hitting people or shouting or screaming or throwing tantrums. And the second thing that both the parent and the child learn, because see, parenting is an experience for the parent as well. I mean, all of us think that the child is growing up, but really the parent is growing up as well, because the parent has never parented a 6-month child when the child is 6 months. By the time the child is 3 years, the parent doesn't have any experience of parenting a 3-year-old child. So it's a journey for the parent as much as it is for the child. So if parents can learn how to creatively resolve conflicts with children, creatively and collaboratively resolve conflicts with children, that sets a template for the two of them to solve problems in the future together. So what both parties learn from this is that next time there's a problem between the two of us, this is how we're going to solve it. So I don't know how many parents have heard of these theories, how many parents get training in how to implement these things, because sometimes they seem easier than they are, and just reading a paragraph about it is not quite the same as visiting a professional and getting personalized tips. But my sense is that parents have moved from a point where violence was acceptable to a point where violence is no longer acceptable. They don't know what to replace it with instead. And certainly some of my friends, what I see them doing is going into rewards mode, what I call rewards mode. So they say, okay, punishment is bad, but you know what, we're going to buy you a new iPad if you stop watching this one. And rewards obviously have their own limitations, because they then don't allow children to develop a lot of internal motivation, and then the behavior of children becomes contingent on next rewards. So in your experience, how do you see parents parenting children today, and what is your sense of the awareness amongst parents about how to manage conflict with children, how to manage issues like discipline?
First thing I would like to convey that I'll discuss about two kinds of parents. One, those who are the professional parents. So the scarcity of time is a concern. So they do not have enough time to spend with the child. And the second type of parent, they feel that we have given fees to the school. Now it is the school's responsibility. If the child is not performing, if the child is, having any kind of concern, then it's the school's responsibility. It's a shocking thing for me as well that around 40% parents in any of the schools, since I'm associated with the forum also, they come to the school teacher or the school principal saying, you call my husband and talk to him, you call my wife and tell him this thing. So we are not qualified to have those marriage counseling kind. But they are not ready to accept that there is a conflict. They are not ready to accept that there is a gap between mother and the child, or the father and the child, or the siblings, they have some gap. Acceptance is somewhat missing, I believe. And until and unless the acceptance is there, the second phase which you were talking about, three kinds of parenting kind, and so I don't feel more than 1% or 2%, since you are in this field. How many parents you deal with that they are coming to you? And maybe 1%, right? So the answer lies with you that only 1% parents, they are coming to you for these types of trainings or the briefings or the knowledge. The acceptance is not on the agenda.
But it does look like parents, in terms of their relationship to school, they look up to school, and they have expectations. So
see, still we are living in a society where within the family, of course, maybe the first circle, the things are shared. But still Indian families, they try not to go out of that family and discuss about these issues, which are quite frequent nowadays. So going out, taking a counseling from a qualified person, or there is some specified course for it, they should have some kind of knowledge. Parenting is also a skill. Now you need to have a different kind of skill dealing with a toddler than with the adolescent, and then a child who is in classes 11th or 12th. So we don't find that any such thing is known to the parents.
So it sounds like parents are generally stressed. They are ill-equipped in terms of knowing what to do. they do have the best intentions though, don't they? I mean, I see all sorts of parents and they always have the best interest for the child at heart. Once you get to the bottom of the matter, they just don't know how to go about doing it. And they might come very desperately, very forcefully onto schools, demanding things.
Stressful condition, under this pressure, the victims are the schools and the teachers.
Everybody is a victim, isn't it? It's just about different grades. You've obviously got a much more challenging role because you're facing 2,000 children and 4,000 parents, and so the enormity of it is much greater. But it does confirm to me that parents will or might come across as being very forceful or very demanding, but at some core level it seems to be driven by anxiety. And
What school fraternities they are feeling and they are realizing that in certain segment we need to train them. For example, the induction program or the orientation program for the parents, the new parents, those whose children they join the school, or the orientation program at the time when the children they are shifting from class 5th to 6th, because there is a change in the syllabus from 3 subjects or the 4 subjects. The one subject called EVS gets split into 6: history, geography, civics, and then biochemistry, physics. So that's again change. And then from 8th to class 9, where many other adolescence issues they are coming. So again, the schools on an average they are having 4 to 5 orientation or the induction programs for the parents. But I think it's the time then we must propose a kind of structured thing for the parents of different departments in a school.
great. So let me try and sum up this session. So it sounds like we've tried to look at what's changed about the world today, and especially related to children and children's mental health, and especially when it comes to their interface with schools and parents. I can see that that parents, teachers, and students are more stressed than before. I think that's quite clear. I can see that there is a desire to be happy. I can see that there is a lack of skill and a lack of ability and a lack of training. So it'll be useful to clarify what we mean by happiness at this stage. So happiness is such an overused term, isn't it? And it's just useful to know that here, what we're not referring to is happiness as a state of mind. Is that, are you feeling happy right now, or are you having a happy day or not? Are you having a sad? It's not just how you're feeling this very moment. When we talk about happiness as professionals, what we're talking about is actually a lot of research that has been done in the field of positive psychology. So there was a time when I was studying medicine when I was taught that the human brain doesn't grow after the age of 18. And we now know that this is not true. So we know that adults can continue to change, they can continue to develop, they can learn how to have better relationships, they can learn how to identify and manage their stress better if they have some training and some help. And this entire field that works with so-called normal people and helping them to be better is called positive psychology. So they have come up with 3 separate principles. The first one is called resilience. So resilience very simply is defined as an individual's ability to cope with adversity. So you may have seen some people who've experienced some stresses in life, and they've been able to cope with that better than others. So when we look back, those people who cope better, we say that they have more resilience. The second one is something called as emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. So just like there are different types of intelligences, such as mathematical ability or an ability with words or an ability with pictures, it is now known that both social and emotional competencies, so the ability to be more aware of yourself, the ability to know how somebody else is feeling, which is empathy, being able to manage your emotions better, being able to manage your relationships better, and do all this in a way that you're able to demonstrate some responsible decision making. So these 5 components so emotional intelligence is these 5 components. And so logically the next question is, how do we get more emotional intelligence, and how can we get other people to become more emotionally intelligent? So the good thing is that it's not something that's difficult, it's not something that takes a long time, and all you need is some structure. You do need a little bit of time and a little bit of practice. It's very similar to physical health. So just like by doing a few right things, by getting a bit of regular exercise, by eating a healthy diet, by getting a good quality sleep, you can manage your weight and you can manage the way you look. In the same way, if you can consciously try and learn how to become more mindful, so we're going to talk about mindful now. Okay, I'll just take a break. So we're going to talk about mindfulness now. Mindfulness is the ability to be in the present moment. And the way that you inculcate this ability is by practicing mindfulness. So all of us know that life is supposed to be lived in the present, isn't it? So we can't really do anything about the future, and the past has already gone. Yet a lot of our time is spent thinking about what had happened or thinking about what we're going to do, which means that we're not really being able to live our life. This has become a lot worse recently because of technology and because of lots of distractions and lots of interruptions in life. So it is genuinely the need of the hour that children and parents and teachers get introduced to concepts like emotional intelligence and mindfulness and receive some support so that they can walk the first few steps and see what it feels like. Because I strongly believe that any school or any family, even if they make some conscious steps to try and make their organization or their institution a bit more mindful, then things like how people communicate with each other, how they're able to take responsibility for themselves, these things change. And then institutions can flourish and be a lot happier. Here are the takeaways from life as a parent today. Parents are facing unprecedented levels of stress and distractibility. They are somewhat more isolated than what they used to be like before, although it is now well known that there are adverse impacts of aggression and violence towards children, especially when they grow up. But parents still don't seem very well versed with the latest evidence-based parenting techniques and somehow struggle with disciplinary issues today. They continue to flip between the 2 modes of rewards and punishment, with both of these having significant difficulties. They are also unable to establish a close, secure bond with schools, leading to a mistrust or a lack of trust between schools and parents. Finally, parents may have their own work-related or personal life stresses where they may not necessarily get good quality support. We're going to look more into what the life is as a parent and what are some ways that schools can improve the quality of the relationship that they share with parents in the following session.